Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of We're Just Talking. Today's topic of conversation is our favorite film franchises. Joining us from what looks like sunny London, it's quite bright there, is
That's just a really good lighting.
as a ringer from the UK Film Review. This is Rachel, everybody. How you doing today, Rachel?
I'm good. I'm very well.
Rachel and I are going to be discussing what we think the top 3 film franchises are. And I have a hunch that they're going to be very, very fucking different lists. So, Rachel, would you like to get us started with your number 3 pick for the greatest franchise?
I'm going to go straight in.
Yes, please do.
Because I know you're not ready for it and you don't believe me. But I'm going to say, yeah, the Blair Witch Projects. 1, 2, and 3, all of them. I think that the Blair Witch Project is so overlooked as a franchise. I think people don't realize that there are 3 of them. Mm-hmm. I certainly think people don't realize that the second one existed, because the third one got quite a lot of press coverage, didn't it?
It did. It was marketed for the first 6 months before it came out as a film called Into the Woods, and then revealed at Comic-Con to be Blair Witch.
And the second one got none of that.
Well, there was a lot of hype behind the second one because of how big the first one was. I remember I went and saw Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows opening night. And I think everyone was thrown not only just that it wasn't a found footage movie, but that it almost, in its plot and execution, sort of almost treated the original like it was a piece of fiction. And I think a lot of people were like, wait a minute, you're telling me this movie I love isn't real now?
Yeah, the thing is with Blair Witch, initially as the original film Blair Witch, obviously this film is it changed the face of horror. It coined the term found footage, didn't it? Because it came from the title card where it said, and then their footage was found. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we all know that the first technically found footage film was Cannibal Holocaust. But obviously that, Blair Witch coining the term. And then there was it was genius in regards to the media campaign for the first one with the internet site and everything that they had for the year before. They put that website up a year before that film came out, which is a crazy amount of time to create hype. I think it was premiered at Sundance originally, the first one.
It was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So everyone was like, oh my God. And here's a fun statistic. 40% of Americans believed it was real.
That doesn't... Considering 45% of Americans voted for Donald Trump, that doesn't shock me.
Yeah, your Trump situation is a bit delicate, let's say the least. But
go into that, I'll lose half my views.
But obviously, in regards to that, so many people were duped. And I think the second one, and what's so great about it, obviously you could talk about the Blair Witch as an original film for forever and not get old, of how they made the film, the way they genuinely put the actors out there, the way they denied them food and there was no contact for all the time they were in the woods, and how they didn't tell them how they were going to scare them. That's genius filmmaking within itself. In regards to that, my favorite scene is when it's just Heather and Mike after Josh has gone missing. Tell me where you are, Josh. Literally, every time I go to the woods, I just scream that. And then there's a bit where they're sitting by the tree and Mike's like, I found cigarettes in the bottom of my bag.
Oh, and he's rocking.
Yeah. And Heather's like, oh, thank God. And that apparently was real, because they weren't provided with cigarettes in the little milk crates that they were given by the directors. And I just love that intensity and that realism. But what I think is so great about the Blair Witch is this was a film that was huge. It made so much money because obviously it cost so little to make. And then they turned around and went, we're not going to do that again. We're going to make a second film that is highlighting the fact that it wasn't real and 40% of you were duped, And I was just like...
Well, it's really a film about mass hysteria, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
the group of the stereotypical characters, obviously you've got the believer, the disbeliever, you've got the goth girl, the real Wiccan, mm-hmm. the guy who's trying to make profit off it and everything like that. So they're all the characters that did exist in society after the Blair Witch came around. And I was like, you know what? That's a bold filmmaking move. And although the movie isn't great, I hear obviously that in production, they kind of cut it so much.
There's a lot of studio meddling, a lot. Yeah. I remember hearing the director talk about how he wanted to open the film with Frank Sinatra's Witchcraft. And the studio was like, no,
they changed it to Marilyn Manson,
so you're going to get a Marilyn Manson song instead.
I would love to see the original film. because they told them to go in and add all the violence, all the stabbing scenes of the tourists and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, they tore apart a film that was meant to be initially just about mass hysteria. And I would love to have seen that, because, you know, you have to kind of think to yourself, with the three of them in the first one in the woods, although it was meant to like genuinely be happening to them, of course, you're also still going to freak each other out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a level of mass hysteria. And I just thought that movie in itself, even though, yes, it was destroyed by, again, as you said, meddling and things like that, it was a very, very ballsy move. It was a very interesting take on a sequel. If you look at like Scream 2, Friday the 13th 2, Halloween 2, you know, all of those things, they follow the linear pattern of filmmaking. Yes, this was successful, and yes, this is how we're going to make money again. And so that's great. And I liked that Blair Witch 2 were like, we're just going to do what we want.
It was a really dangerous and bold choice. It really was. I like I said, I remember seeing it opening night, and it was. I don't think the theater knew exactly what they were getting, and the trailers for the movie were really cryptic too. So I think we were all led to believe it was going to be more of the same, and when we didn't get it, it was a bit started. Because even the film opens with sort of a docu thing, with all the townspeople talking about how the Blair Witch Project ruined their tourism and these people are hanging out in the woods. So it would open like that. We're like, oh, okay, we're going to ease into this. And then it just very abruptly becomes a straight ahead movie. And I like a lot of it. I like a lot of the ideas in it. There's a couple moments that when I watch it, I go, whoa, should have cut that. Like the characters are continually having paranoid delusions. And there's a scene where Jeffrey Donovan walks in and he sees the goth girl and it looks like she's eating an owl. And he goes like this and he rubs his eyes and she's holding like a drumstick and she goes, what? And I was like, who? Like the way
when he's in the, he wants the coffee and he spins around and it's like the electric chair and he's like, coffee. And she's like, it's
exactly.
by your side. Like
there's a couple moments there and I'm not sure how many of those are studio meddling and how many were just part of Berlinger's original script. But there's a few moments in there that kill the tension for me. But I really love the performances by the cast. I love the ending. I'd say spoilers, but this movie's been out for 21 years. With the I can't remember the character's name. The wife, the wife of the writer. How she basically baits him into hanging herself.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an extraordinary scene. Like the tension in that is amazing.
I love the actor who plays her husband, where he like the scene in the police conference room where he's just like, we didn't kill her, and it's he was really good at acting that scene, the crying and the energy in that moment, and he's like that plead for just please believe me, and I was like, oh, this is beautiful, and it's just a shame. I mean, I remember buying it on VHS in like the English equivalent like of, I don't know what you guys have as record stores, but we have like HMV. Mm-hmm. In like the sales section, and I was just like, yeah, I'm all about this, and watching it with my pals, and I just like remember it being like completely shunned in this country. I don't even think or recall I know anyone who actually saw it at the theaters over
Is that
here.
right?
I really don't. I don't remember it coming out at all. I just saw it and was like, I'm about that. Let's go buy that.
It didn't make a lot of noise here. I think it made some decent money opening weekend because it's Blair Witch 2. Yeah. But then I think word of mouth got around that it wasn't the same old, and it kind of trickled off really fast. I always wondered, what is the Book of Shadows? There's no book in the movie. What is this? What does this mean? I think that also
was again, it was another thing that was fingered in by the old, you know, production companies and stuff like that. All the stuff that happened after the movie was made, all the stuff that the directors and the screenwriter, because it was just, the director and screenwriter was the same guy, wasn't he? All the stuff he didn't want, that was put in as well, and he was like, it makes no sense, and they were like, print.
Well, there's a teaser trailer that shows a woman in the woods with a book. And so when we saw the film, we're like, what is this title? What does this mean? It's nothing.
The only book in reference is the husband and wife writing the book about the Blair Witch, hysteria, or whatever they called it. I can't remember.
How did you feel about 2016? 2016's Blair Witch. Oh. I didn't go to the movies to see it because I was just like, this is a really weird thing, but like the cinema screens, when they have certain like camera actions, make me feel like nauseous. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I could deal with seeing those kind of camera angles on the screen. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to go see it at the movies. I'll watch it at home just for that reason alone. Otherwise I would have been to see it. And I was like,
I don't like this movie, but that movie answers every single question that every Blair Witch fan or horror fan would ask about the Blair Witch happening to them now. And again, that's a very clever and well thought out move in regards to filmmaking. You sit there now, if you watch the Blair Witch, you're like, yeah, well, you'd have a drone now. Yeah, well, you'd have a smartphone now. Yeah, well, you'd have GPS now. So what they did, they were like, they really emphasized the fact that they had all that. And the characters were like, we have every single piece of tech. We are savvy. We're going in. Everything that every audience member in like 2016 or 2016 when it was asking. And that's brilliant. And I was just like, I want to see how that pans out. I love this. And everything was great with the drones crashing and all that excitement. I loved like the like neo-Nazi people that they like hired to help them.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, here's the black guy, but he's got a Confederate flag. What does this mean? And you're just like, yeah, whatever. Okay, cool. Like, I enjoyed like the characters were interesting. The characters weren't like, copy and paste horror movie characters. I did enjoy that there was a bit of diversity to each character, which was interesting. But the minute the film went downhill for me personally was when you started to see the witch. Mm-hmm. But I loved the way it explained so much. And that's what I think is important. And I hope they end it here because it kind of summed everything up, in a sense that, the forest is time shifting, isn't it? I think,
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things that they introduced because, with Heather, Josh, and Mike, they keep walking in different directions and ending up in the same place. And I like that the movie tried to explain how that was happening. I love that when the strange couple that leaves comes back, it's been like days for them and hours for the others.
Food. Yeah.
I thought that all that stuff was really interesting. I like that they introduced Heather's brother as a protagonist. I thought that was a really clever thing. And they did similar stuff with marketing. They did fake Facebook pages for missing people in the cast that had gone missing. Mm-hmm. Really, really clever marketing.
I think that the Blair Witch 3 really like summed up a bunch of stuff and answered a bunch of questions. Also as well with it was terrible. We don't know his name. We're just going to say the neo-Nazi-esque guy.
Right.
Because he starts working for the witch, doesn't he? And they see him again way later on. And for him, it's been years that
he's in the house. Yeah,
he's in the house. Yeah. And then that obviously then sums up and rounds up the story of Rust and Parr.
Oh, that's my favorite. There. That's my favorite. Yeah. I love the Blair Witch Project. I love that original film. But my favorite part about all of it is the mythology.
Yeah.
A week before the original Blair Witch came out, there was an hour documentary that aired on the Sci-Fi channel. Called
Yes, I've watched it. It's on YouTube still.
It's magnificent, and it's so detailed and so believable. If you showed it to someone that didn't know otherwise, they would believe every single thing that happens. And every story in there, from Irene Trinkle to Rust and Parr, it's all absolutely mortifying and creepy.
Yeah, and so the third one, I think they really did a lot of justice and a lot of like, they kind of, I feel like they almost answered what the fans wanted. If there was like a chat room about it, they went in and read every single post and was like, yeah, this is what we're going to do now. And they did pay a lot of respect to the original story. Again, bringing in Heather's brother, that pays a lot of respect to, the storyline, the timeline and things like that. And then obviously we're bringing in the tech, all the questions that the fans want answered. And I just was like, although personally I didn't like the film, that's just my that's opinion. From a film critic point of view, I think it was very clever. It was very well made. I think it was it was perfect for basically ending the world of Blair Witch and just closing the box on it. But why'd you have to show the witch, man? That really fucked me right off.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't want to see her.
It was good for a theater jump scare, and that was pretty much it.
But there's something about that concept, isn't there, about having your back to her. And that was the original fear of seeing Josh facing the wall and her facing the wall, and she's got the camera here and you can see behind her. And I just wish they had cut just before you saw the witch, because anticipation is what makes horror, the fear of the unknown. Ambiguity is, as John Carpenter says, ambiguity is key. Yeah. And so to expose her like that right at the end, I was like,
Well, listening to all the townspeople describe her in the original sets up the most mindfuck idea of what this woman must look like.
The old woman who's like, her feet never touch the ground and she's covered in hair. That's spine-tingling. And then she looks like Slender Man.
Yeah, she's
she's all like that.
A weird Resident Evil boss or something. It was very peculiar. Yeah.
She's
Well,
just
I commend you.
misdirect.
That is an interesting choice for your number 3 franchise, considering you're not even crazy about one of them.
You gotta respect, even if you personally don't enjoy. I think I've been a film critic for too long because I can watch movies and still appreciate them, but then just go, "Oh, that was fucking shit."
I do a lot of hate watching, which I'm sure we'll get to later with one of your picks.
Which one could that possibly be?
Oh, I wonder. Well, my number 3 pick is painfully obvious, unfortunately, and that's Back to the Future. I feel like it's the most perfect trilogy written, directed, and acted you could ever ask for. I know a lot of Lord of the Rings fans are not going to agree with me. But I just feel like it's the closest thing we have to a modern classic, at least that we've had in my life. I can't think of anything about it that could be improved, especially the original. Anything about it that could be improved. It's like a modern version of It's a Wonderful Life. I love the concept of a kid going to school with his parents. I think that's brilliant. And I can't believe it took till 1985 for someone to come up with that. I think the sequels I don't think they're on par with the original, but I think that they're all so unique and complicated and interesting that they sort of earn their place. Like Back to the Future 2 I think is the most interesting time travel movie I've ever seen. It's just full of paradoxes and alternate timelines, and to trust an audience in 89 or 90 to keep up with that is very ballsy. And then to end it with like a family Western, I just feel like it's the most succinct, the most cohesive, and the continuity is just kept in line so tightly. And that's always my problem with sequels, is continuity is so loose.
Yeah, definitely.
They got to figure their way out of certain situations that they put themselves in with the last movie. And Back to the Future, while it wasn't planned ever to have sequels, you would never know it. Everything just runs and fits together so well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Back to the Future is one of those movies where, and there's very few of them that do it successfully, where every age group can enjoy it. And I think and also as well, it's another one of those films that does it very successfully, that even though, when was it? Would you say 1986, 1985 was the first one?
Yeah.
It's still, even though it's about technology and, there's all the kind of like, computer element and stuff like that, it still holds up now.
It does.
And that's impressive, and that's hard to achieve. You watch some movies where, I mean, if you remember the early 2000s, late 90s, where tech movies became a thing and everyone was like, look at my computer and it's like this big and stuff. And you watch it now and you're like, and that's like scary. But Back to the Future it's held its test of time. It's a film that everyone can enjoy. And like, that speaks volumes for when it comes to a franchise. And, everyone wanted a DeLorean, and it's a shit car anyway, but it made that shit car popular. Like, people were like, yeah, I'm all about that DeLorean now. And everyone was like, yo, like 5 years ago, that car was garbage.
I am still all about that DeLorean. I had to talk myself out of spending $150 2 days ago on just a hoverboard replica. Just the prop, a little pink board I could put in the corner.
$150 is a lot of money.
It is a lot and it's plastic. It's plastic with stickers, but it holds so many memories and emotions near and dear to me. The idea of just looking over and seeing it every day.
Yeah.
It makes me happy. It brings me so much joy.
I think I saw the DeLorean, like a replica of the DeLorean at a car show, and just it was crazy to watch how many people were eager to queue up and take their picture with this car, which wasn't even the real one. It was like someone had built it, and it was fucking amazing. They'd done a really good job, and it was like so many generations were like eager to have their picture taken with this car, and it was just like wow, that really stands the test of time. Fantastic.
It is a strangely timeless movie, and I've seen it with people that are 20 years older than me, and even some kids, and there, for some reason, there's something about it that is just ageless. And I think the fact that it embraces its 80s-ness so much, it doesn't try to come off as a modern film when you watch it now. Like the whole point of it is how much times change from the 1950s to 1985 to the Old West. I mean, the only thing they really got wrong was 2015, but God bless them for trying. Still waiting on the flying cars.
Damn, man, the flying cars would save us so much. Well, I mean, like, look at what Logan's Run thought. I think, what was it? They thought 2012 was going to be or something like that.
Oh my God, that's problem with the flying cars was how do you do traffic lanes? I've always wondered that. Wouldn't you just have accidents constantly happening in the sky?
It'd be exactly like that, because you would just it's not going to be like Futurama, man. However much we hope it was, it's not Futurama.
There'd be cars crashing into each other in the sky and then falling and landing on people.
Yeah.
Terrible.
which is just upping the crime rate and the traffic rate and all that terrible stuff.
Now, did you see those films staggered, or did you see them sort of all together?
I didn't watch Back to the Future. You're about to fall off your chair. I didn't. I haven't watched Back to the Future. Didn't watch Back to the Future until I was 23.
Wow.
My childhood was so repressed. I was again, as a child, I was watching horror movies. I didn't do the Disney thing. I didn't do the Pixar thing. I didn't do the family movie thing. So I didn't watch Back to the Future until I had a roommate who was like, yeah, totally into it and all that, and 80s nostalgia that he had. He was a lot older than me, so he was like, you gotta watch it. And we watched the first two that day, and then I watched the third one like a couple of years later. So.
Okay. And how was that coming into it completely dry at that age?
It was so dry. Yeah, I remember just watching it and being just like, because Jake, like, that was my housemate. He was like, it's an 80s icon, man. And he is like the worst at picking movies. So I did kind of going it like really dubiously, being like, this is going to be garbage because you picked it. And I'm sorry, but he just had that reputation. And by the end of it, I was like, and I just thought it was brilliant. And like, I absolutely loved every moment of it. And it was just feel good. And it's got great pacing. And even though I was ready to just kind of go, oh, it's another one of those 80s cringe movies that he likes, I actually was just like, yes, it is kind of corny. And yes, it is very 80s, as we said, but it's genuinely like a good, fun ride, and it's enjoyable. And everyone wants to wear puffer jackets and drive a DeLorean now.
I've been Marty McFly for Halloween 3 or 4 times already. So,
what?
Yeah. I just love that everything pays off. You watch that, especially if you rewatch that movie after you've seen it. I mean, God knows how many times I've seen Back to the Future, but everything in that movie pays off. Every little thing that you think is going to be insignificant has some sort of conclusion an hour and a half later. It's really brilliant writing by
Oh yeah, it's
Galen
really
Zemeckis.
well written.
Yeah. All right, so what's your number 2? Let's hear it.
I'm saving the best for last because I know that we're both in agreement on one. I am so ready to talk about how much I love Jaws as a franchise. I want to know, why do you not think Jaws is a good pick?
For a franchise?
Just a preface for anyone watching, we both discussed what we
we discussed briefly beforehand.
Why not Jaws?
The drop in quality is so drastic.
So good.
Jaws it's one of those perfect movies. And it's a cultural moment. You know, Spielberg made this film that literally scared people from going swimming for years. It's still to this day one of the best films he's ever made. And the drop in quality when you get to 2, and I don't even want to talk about 3 and 4, but just
3 and 4 are the best ones.
See, that's the thing. But the drop in quality, it goes from being like an Oscar quality film to something that's on at 11:30 at night on some random cable channel. Like, it's a huge jump. Now, if the first one had been kind of a sleazy grindhousey thing, then I would probably feel really differently about them. But the fact that the first one is like a proper film and these other ones could pass for like made for TV movies, I can't get over the difference in quality there. But I want to hear why you love them so much.
I'm a sucker for fucking shit movies, right? And when I saw Jaws 4, and they wanted me to believe as an audience member that shark swam from Amityville I'm gonna not be American right now. That's near New York, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. To the Bahamas in order to seek revenge.
It's a spiteful shark. Yeah.
On the family. I was just like, who green lighted that project? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who was like, brilliant. Yeah, sharks know that. Sharks are fucking about that shit. And you've gone from this film where they actually genuinely did, like, you know, marine biology research and things like that. You know, the initial Jaws, which is fantastic, great. That's how you make a movie, good research. To trying to pitch that as a believable thing. I couldn't deny how much I was like, yeah, that's fucking brilliant. Don't make me believe it. I want it to be so ridiculous that it's insane. And Michael Caine was in it.
I've heard him talk about that movie, and when people ask him how he ended up in Jaws 4, I think he said something like, "I needed to buy a house."
Love it. That's honestly brilliant. And the shark in Jaws 4 is fucking shit. And it's
well, they get progressively worse. Because
Like, I
the
think
one in
Jaws 4
3D is, oh my God.
Jaws 3D, yeah. Oh my God. Jaws 4 is like known as the worst one, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I love the storyline of Jaws 4. I love how I love the acting in Jaws 4 as well. How everyone just constantly does this face. Every time they see the shark, there's no like actual fear. Everyone's just like, oh, what an absolute pain in my ass today. I have to do something else. Like it just seems like an inconvenience to have the shark around. It's so inconvenient. But I think Jaws 3D, I genuinely, although the film visually is fucking garbage.
That shot where it goes through the glass.
Love it. I don't think they should have tried to jump on the 3D wagon at that point. I know that at the point in that point in time, it was very big in cinema to do 3D stuff. Yeah. Fine, whatever. There was a resurgence of that in the early 2000s as well, wasn't there? We had like My Bloody Valentine 3D and all that shit. That
Avatar.
Yeah, it's good crap. I hate 3D stuff. I'm not interested in it. But for Jaws 3D, everyone slates it, but I think everyone slates it because they're focusing on the fact that it's a crappy 3D film. I'm like, do you know what? At the end of the day, I think it's very interesting that they chose to have the threat at SeaWorld. Because I was just like, yeah, that's an interesting dynamic. You could have kept rehashing the story of them being on the beach in Amityville. And I was like, I liked that with Jaws. They knew it was a dying brand. They knew they could only go so far with a shark that wants to eat people. You can't go very far with that. But they got 4 movies out of that. They got 4 movies. One of them's in SeaWorld. Yeah, fuck it, bring it on. I love that.
So you almost love them ironically. Would you say that? Like
no,
you watch them knowing like this is shit and I love it.
Yeah, definitely. But I think like that, for my personal opinion, as I said, I love shit films. But from a film critic point of view, you have to have a certain amount of stamina to be given the green light, if you will, to create movies where you know that it's dead in the water, literally. Like, you know that you can't go any further than Jaws 1. You know that you can't out-better that. And I think there was a point where, there was some creative script writing going on. There was some creative scenario going on.
You say creativity, I think cocaine, probably.
Yeah, they're probably off their tits. They've just got baguettes and they fill the baguettes with cocaine and they're just fucking eating it.
What if the shark wants revenge, man?
Yeah, he's got to swim. He's got to swim really fast. But I just really enjoyed the creativity behind it. And I think that they're so overlooked and they're so thrown away for being crappy 80s movies. And I'm just like, yo, the shark goes to SeaWorld. That's genius. The shark knows they're in the Bahamas, man. Like just the sharks checking in on a plane, like following them,
I'm going to rewatch Jaws 4 today. I'm going to rewatch it today just for you with an open mind.
The bit where Michael Caine's on the boat, right, on the plane that's crashed in the water, and the shark comes, he just goes, oh, shit, like that. It's so good.
It is strange seeing Michael Caine in that movie and not knowing the story behind it. The first time I saw it, I'm like who did he lose a bet? I just wonder how far it would have gone if they had continued. Like, how far off the rails would Jaws 5 have been?
I'm thinking it would have gone Sharknado territory.
You think so? I was thinking maybe like some sort of weird cybernetic shark that they've taught to speak that says quippy
one-liners. Or it's
one-liners.
got like tiny robot legs.
Yeah. Shark that has like genetically been modified to come on land now. That's Jaws 5.
I want to see. But like everyone always talks about how like the directing and everything gets worse and it's all like fucking shit and stuff like that, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, yo, man, if you crave POV underwater shots that sharks might see, every movie's got it. You can't escape that shot. They love that shot. They love that entry POV shot under the water, don't they?
It's true. And, I'd even say that the Jaws sequels inspired many more copycats than Jaws did, because you look at movies like Deep Blue Sea, like those movies are so campy that they can't not have used Jaws 2 and 3 and 4 as some sort of inspiration.
Even like the Meg.
Exactly.
Huge budgets. Even I just watched them and go, eh. The only one recently, I think, in regards to shark movies that was relatively plausible, I think it was called The Shallows.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Not bad. It was okay. Yeah, but I think Jaws is iconic. And I think, again, like the Blair Witch, it did spawn a lot of movies and it was a great inspiration for a lot of films. And I think so many people are so quick to just be like, oh, it's garbage because it's not Spielberg. It's not to that quality. And I'm just like, yes, that's true. But you could say that about so many franchise films anyway. unless Disney have their claws on it because they'll just pump money into everything.
Mhm.
But you know, and I was just like, if you want a fun, dumb movie to enjoy, y'all got a pick of 4 of them. I want to watch a shark eat kids in SeaWorld. I want to watch that.
You're not wrong. I get it. You're not wrong. I understand it. I don't agree, but I understand it. So that makes sense. For me, you know, with franchises, I need some sort of through line. I need, for me, it's like visiting old friends. Those are my favorite franchises where the creators, it's, you know, someone behind the scenes has been there from the beginning, is still around. You have returning characters. That's a very, very big deal for me. And I think Jaws 2 is the only one that brings anybody back. So
Jaws 4, it's Brody's wife, and the 2 other guys are meant to be the sons grown up. And then in Jaws 3D, the shark is meant to be the offspring of the main shark. The shark relationships. The shark.
Vengeance via bloodline. Got it.
Yeah. The shark has got like family, and then that shark tells the other one to hate the Brodies before it gets exploded.
Oh, God.
And then they will tell each other to hate the Brody family, and then they just get blown up because they always explode. The sharks always explode.
It's the only way to kill a shark.
Yeah, I think they eat a lot of TNT. I think that the seabed is littered with dynamite that we.
It has to be, yeah, easily. I only wish I had been old enough to see the poster for that movie before it came out, because it says, you know, Jaws. It just says it's this time it's personal, and I would have said no, it's not. He's a shark. It's not personal. It makes me think.
He explodes.
There's that great bit in Back to the Future 2. There's a little connection here where Marty's in 2015, and there's a cinema playing Jaws 19 behind him. And there's like a big holographic shark. And the tagline for the movie is Jaws 19, this time it's really, really personal. Which I think is a perfect commentary on where that series was at the time. Well done. Well done. My second pick is, I don't think it's, I feel like mine are fairly obvious, which kind of sucks because yours are really interesting. But my second pick is the Rocky franchise.
Happy birthday, Paulie.
Happy birthday, Paulie. But which, by the way, for me does include the Creed films. So you're talking about 8 movies strong here, with really long through lines of directors and writers and cast. Like I said, that's a huge thing for me is being able to keep up with it. It's almost like a long form television show. You tune in to see your friends every week. And with the Rocky movies, it was that. And I feel like they went through an interesting development of Rocky was an Oscar-winning film. It won Best Picture at the Oscars in like 1977. And there was never like a huge dip in quality, but they did kind of begin to embrace the more ridiculous and cartoony aspects, especially when you get to like Rocky 4 and especially 5. But 4 is basically an 80-minute montage. There's 3 montages in Rocky 4 that take up 30 minutes of the movie. So
yeah, there's a lot of montage.
There is, and Rocky 5 is a low point, but it does this really miraculous thing of starting in a place of being an Oscar movie and then going to popcorn fare and sort of bottoming out with Rocky 5. And then 16 years later, Stallone makes Rocky Balboa, which is, to me, it might be my favorite in the entire series. And then we're back up to Creed, which is another Oscar-nominated film. And I think that's a really amazing thing for a franchise that's been around for 50 years.
Yeah.
To still be Oscar bait. Like I've never heard of that.
I watched Rocky again later in life. I think I was like maybe 20, 21. And I went around to my pal's house, and we're big WWE fans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we just watched WrestleMania, and he was like, yo, man, I'm in the mood for the Rocky movies. And I was like, I've never seen them. I'll watch them. Like, oh, I'm sitting there thinking, isn't there 3 question mark at this point? Like, there's not. And he was like, yeah, get ready. And he lived in this shared house where you just rent a room and everyone else is in the house. So everyone kind of like came down from all the other rooms, and we all started watching it. And I got to Rocky 3 or 4 with the robot.
4. Yeah.
4. Wow, I got far.
Yeah, you did.
And I was just like, what? At that point, I was like,
yeah.
And then I loved it. I loved it so much. And I think I did Rocky 5, and then I've not seen any of the other ones. I think the experience of watching it with like, you know, my guy friends and everyone being really super into it, and they were like big fans. So they were all like quoting and joking around. Sure. And they kept saying like, wait till the robot comes, Rachel. And I was like, what are we talking about? This is a boxing movie.
Oh,
and like they were like kind of ribbing about that one, and it was like a really fun, enjoyable experience. But I haven't ever watched Rocky like alone and sat down and been like, I'm invested in the movie fully.
Yeah. I can't recommend doing that enough. What?
I feel like I do need to like sit down and watch it like as a movie and not in like a social environment with friends.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You could probably get away with doing like 2 a day for a couple days and just fly through it. Because they kind of get pigeonholed by people who haven't seen them as being boxing movies, and they're, with the exception of maybe 4, they're really not boxing movies. Boxing takes up 20% of the movie. They're really, really human, intimate stories, especially the first one. It's basically a love story.
You should say that, because when I was at my friend's house, and he literally was like, well, I've never seen any of the Rockies. I don't like boxing. I don't like violence. Like, he's very against violence and stuff like that. So he was like, I wouldn't watch it. And I was like, I wonder if that is like a huge perception that people have. Like,
for those that haven't seen it, yeah, they'd probably see it as a fighting movie. And
but if you love montages,
if you love fighting and montages, Rocky IV is the Godfather.
If you like gray sweatpants, running upstairs, robots that wish you happy birthday.
Oh man, everybody regrets that robot. Even Stallone regrets that robot.
I liked the robot. I liked that bit. I thought it was just so funny.
It's the only thing in the series that steps completely outside the bounds of reality. Like, everything else is very grounded, and then all of a sudden there's a robot that does not exist in 1985, and it's talking and bringing people beers, and it's a strange choice. It's a very strange choice.
To this day, that pal who made me watch all the Rocky movies, he unfortunately he's moved away, and I don't see him as much anymore. But to this day, we still send each other the picture on, like, you know, birthday Facebook of the robot saying "Happy Birthday, Paul."
Happy birthday, Polly.
Happy birthday, Polly. Like, every time. What is this? A talking trash can? Every year, it's like just the funniest thing. I think the Rocky movies, yeah, they're thrown under the bus as fighting movies, and I think a lot of people miss out on the actual story of, like, it's. I feel like the first one is like a class struggle and stuff like that.
It's an underdog story, yeah.
Yeah, and then you've obviously got the romantic storyline, which I'm like, I'm not a romantic storyline kind of person. But, you know, obviously that's going to appeal to a wider audience of people. There's so much more than just punching each other in the face.
It is. And each one is so distinctive. And the only two that really run together, and it's in a good way, are Rocky and Rocky 2, because they feel like the same kind. They feel like extensions of each other. Like, you watch those two back to back, it's like you've watched a 3.5 hour movie.
Yeah, it's like if you watch the original Halloween and the original Halloween 2.
Exactly.
They do the same thing. Spot
on comparison. Yeah. It feels, and oddly enough, you know, Stallone wrote all of them, but he didn't start directing them till the second one, and he directed 2 through 6. And it's amazing how much, even just from a cinematography point and an art direction point, how much he got his film to look like it was made by the director of the first one, David Adelson. Like, it's an amazing world he's built. And by the time you get to the middle of it, by the time you get to 3, it's just fun. They're fun movies when you get to that point. And then where they've gone with the Creed series, you said you haven't seen them, right?
No, I haven't seen the Creed series. I haven't seen Balboa. I haven't basically seen any of the newish stuff that hasn't come out since the original lineage, if you will.
Incredibly strong. I don't want to get it too much, and I don't spoil too much for you. But in the 4th Rocky movie, I don't know if you remember this, but Rocky's friend Apollo Creed is killed in the ring by a Russian boxer.
Yeah.
Apollo has a son out of wedlock, and that's who the lead of the Creed films is. Michael B. Jordan plays Adonis Creed. And they do this, and the first Creed movie is just like the first Rocky. It's completely serious, underdog story, heartfelt. And they do this really great mishmash, because Rocky IV is such a cartoony movie in comparison to the rest of the series, that they do this thing in Creed 2 that completely legitimizes it, which is the son of the man who killed Creed's father is now a boxer.
Yeah.
And the whole plot of Creed 2 is Adonis Creed becoming obsessed with fighting this guy and avenging his father's death. And they don't do it in a cartoony way. It almost legitimizes Rocky IV retrospectively in a really interesting way. Can't recommend it enough. All right, let me hear your number 1 pick here.
You love it.
Probably.
You love it.
Probably.
We're going to talk obviously about Friday the 13th. I mean, Friday the 13th is literally a fucking iconic film. Everyone always talks about like the 70s because it was very close to the 80s, the 70s, 80s slasher, like it went mental, didn't it?
Yeah.
Slasher flicks. It was crazy. And there was a little rebirth in the late 90s with Scream and stuff, but you know, the 70s and 80s had it down. And everyone always talks obviously about Halloween being iconic, John Carpenter, and that movie is iconic. But like, if I want to go in and have that feel of a 70s and 80s slasher film, fuck you, Halloween. I'm watching Friday the 13th. I'm watching it. There's something about, if you think about the first one, the aesthetic of that movie was stunning. The fact that they were like, all right, let's dump them in the middle of fucking nowhere in a summer camp that's meant to be a place of joy, you know, the pre-game setup, like, oh, we got to get ready for the kids and stuff like that. They had the cast, which was like absolute nobodies at that point. Kevin Bacon, no one knew who he was, and all those other kind of things. That movie is just, it was fantastically done aesthetic wise, and the idea of it and isolating the teens, because we've all seen the teens be killed. Like, how do you make it fresh? And that was super fresh. And the second one was great. And like you were saying, there is the story, there is the lineage in the beginning of Jason, and then finding out it's his mother, and then Jason returning. And then it's not till number 3, he doesn't get the mask, does he, till number 3?
3. You
see like the evolution of him as a killer going along and, you know, like honing his craft, if you will. When does he get the machete?
He gets the machete. He has a machete at the end of 2. Yeah. It's around.
Yeah, it's just laying around. It's casual.
He's got it in his little shed.
And that's the thing. You see, like, you know, his house build up, like, you know, his home life and things like that. And then there's the shrine to his mom.
Shay Jason, I call it.
Yeah, it's Shay Jason. It's on Airbnb. 5 stars. It was nice. I found a severed head. It was great. 5 stars. Yeah, and it had that storyline. It had that lineage. You found out about the family. You found out more about Jason's phobia of the water as each movie goes on. And then it kind of went a bit...
Kinda?
What was the one? All right, I loved every Jason movie until the one where and you're better at remembering things than I am, where the girl has telekinetic abilities or psychic
7.
abilities.
That's the New Blood. That's 7.
Trash.
Yeah, well, it really goes on a steep decline. I'm a huge fan of... I'm a huge fan of the first 6. Even 5 is a little to me sometimes, because there's no
5?
Jason, and I get very angry about that. It's like Halloween 3 for people.
I liked Halloween 3.
A lot of people do. But yeah, once they started, you could see the producers going, well, what if we did this with Jason? As opposed, you know, the charm of Friday the 13th is that it is basically the same movie over and over and over. You're just introducing new victims. And the second the producers started getting more creative, like, oh, we'll put him on a boat and send him to Manhattan. Or what if we fucking kill him in the opening scene and he body hops? Or we'll send him to space. The second they went away from he wakes up and he kills people, and then a final girl kills him, and then we have credits. That was the downfall of the series. But no, massive fan of Friday the 13th.
I think when that scene is when he goes to Manhattan and he's just walking down the New York street and he's like
Times Square, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of people, and like, I was kind of like, that was the moment where I was like, yeah, they don't give a fuck anymore.
No, it jumped the shark very quickly, very quick. You know, as many problems as I have with 7, it's Jason Takes Manhattan that really sunk the franchise, I think, and it never really fully recovered.
Don't get me wrong, I'll watch Jason Takes Manhattan, but I'm not going to watch it in the way that I watch Friday the 13th Part 1, 2, and 3 or something like that. You know?
Right.
I'm watching that like I'm watching Jaws 4: The Revenge. You know,
I would have been on board with it if they had actually seen it to fruition, because I'd heard the original intention was like 75% of the movies in New York, and you have Jason in this new environment, but they didn't have the budget to do it. So the whole movie takes place on this cruise ship, and then you cram 15 minutes of him into Manhattan, which is really one scene in Manhattan, and everything else is shot in Toronto or something, or Vancouver.
Yeah.
Like, I would have loved to have seen Jason, you know, walking through Central Park. That would have been fucking terrifying.
Because the thing is as well, even when he's in Manhattan for that very short period of time, he's in the sewer for a lot of it, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, and this notion, this fucking ridiculous idea that they have to get out of the sewer because at midnight, every night, the sewer floods with toxic waste.
Yep. Now, I would like iconic, like, you know, completely say that the Friday the 13th is my ultimate horror movie. I remember. Oh yeah, that was what I was gonna say. I watched, so as a Jason fan, I went all that time, and it was only like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. I was like, right, I'm gonna watch Jason X. I'm gonna do this to myself. I got 45 minutes in, and I was just like, I'm out. I'm done.
It's pretty rough. It's pretty rough.
I just couldn't do it. I just, like, I'm not one of those people, you know, you get those diehard fans of like a franchise or something like that, or even a band, and they'll love everything they do, even if it's fucking shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not that kind of person. Like, you know, I'm very much like my consumer rights. I'm not going to give you my like $5 or whatever you pay to go to the movies. If the film is a piece of shit, I'm going to tell you it's a piece of shit, even if I've loved every single thing about Jason. And Jason X is fucking garbage.
See, I'm actually shocked you don't like it the same way you like Jaws 4.
Yeah, I don't know why I couldn't get through it. Like, I'll take Jason in, you know, Jason Manhattan, the one where the girl's like psychic or whatever. I found the story very slow. Jason Takes Manhattan, at least there's a pacing.
Yeah.
It's got a good pace, and you're going through it and you're following the stories of each individual character, and each character seems quite interesting. The one where the girls like got psychic powers, I didn't engage with anyone. I didn't care if they died. That's it. You check out at that point.
Yeah.
But with Jason X, like the first 45 minutes of it I watched, I didn't engage. I didn't click with anyone. I wasn't invested in anyone on screen. And I was like, yeah, you could die and I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, it's they attempt, you know, if you ever get the chance to finish that, which I don't recommend. You know, they attempt to be a little too meta about it, and I think that can work for certain kinds of films like Scream, where you can be a little self-referential, but you can't make Jason the joke, and they make Jason the joke a lot in Jason X. There's a scene where the character is almost talking directly to the camera. Jason stabs this guy in the back, and the guy goes, "Oh, it's gonna take more than that to put down an old dog like me," and he stabs him again, and the guy goes, "Yeah, that'll do it." And it's just shit like that. You go, like, I understand when you wrote that, it was probably funny and you laughed if you're the writer. But in a theater, it doesn't play. If the characters aren't taking the situation seriously, we're not gonna. That's just the way I see it.
I think that was the thing with it. Like, Jason Takes Manhattan, they still act like it's a serious thing. It's relatively plausible that they'd go on that boat and Jason would be there and start slaying people. But like, yeah, if the characters on screen and the actors on screen aren't buying it, then we're not buying it.
Exactly.
And if you don't invest in a character, even if it's kind of jokey, then you're not invested in the entire goddamn movie. Character development, character arcs, they need to happen, even if the movie is like a total fucking joke. You could take Sharknado, for example. Like, yes, it seems really stupid, but when you watch that movie, every character has their own storyline, their own arc, and own journey that they go through, even though the film is absolute shit.
Yeah, their motivations make sense, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and then I've seen like 3 of the Sharknadoes, and the same guy is in it, and you see his storyline progress. So, do you know what I mean? But in Jason X, it was like there was no storyline. It was just, yeah, let's chuck him in space and make him look like a Pepsi can, whatever. And I was just like, he's not sexy now. I was unattracted to him.
That was the point where you lost interest in Jason physically. Was Jason X? That was it?
Yeah, I need to see Jason in those like cargo-y kind of like beige pants he wears. You know, I want to see like the maggots coming out of his face. That's my kind of guy. You know?
Certainly have a type.
I do. The ones that kill me. That's my type.
Do you have a favorite in the franchise? Because mine, I honestly think Friday the 13th 4 is probably, like, if you're talking about a slasher movie and what a slasher movie is supposed to do and be, I feel like Friday the 13th Part 4 is the greatest slasher movie ever made.
I would say number 2, if I'm correct. Is that the one? Yeah, number 2 is the one with the guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Yep, number 2. I always get 2 and 3 confused, and then I'm like, no, it's number 2. Number 2 is definitely my favorite. It's iconic. I love the whole setup of that movie. You know, the girl and the guy, the storyline where like the counselors were fucking, and she's got the little VW Beetle that never drives, and you're like, well, that's foreshadowing in the beginning of the film.
That, you know, Friday the 13th too is one of the, I honestly think, for one, I think it's much stronger than the first one, and I love the first one. But they do a really good job of setup and payoff in that movie. They have the car, Ginny's car, that doesn't start. There's a scene early on where we see her, for no other reason than the fact that it's going to come up later, we see her put a chainsaw in a closet. Yeah. And for no other reason than 40 minutes later, she's going to pull that thing out and use it. There's a lot of setup and payoff. I like all the characters in that movie. And
I love all the characters.
They're great.
A lot more than the first one.
And I love this. I thought it was really cool that they did this thing where they don't kill everybody. Like half of the counselors go to a bar. And
and then it's a few of them come back to get a ride because everyone's cars are apparently shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, and that's the only reason.
I always wondered in these movies, like, who ends up calling the police when everyone's dead? So I liked the notion that there was like a dozen counselors, and they left the camp, and that's when Jason took his opportunity. I thought that was fantastic.
I do enjoy that. I remember when I first watched that one, and I was like, "Where's everyone going? That's not the usual setup," and I really enjoyed it. But like personally, my favorite scene is when the guy in the wheelchair is about to get laid, and the girl's like, "I'm going upstairs," and he's like, "Cool." And I don't know why he's outside. I can't remember what he was doing. And then he gets killed. Yeah,
it showed us that Jason was an equal opportunist. Just because you're disabled doesn't mean
Jason won't push you down a flight of stairs in bad taste.
That's one of the rougher deaths in the franchise.
To the face.
No, it was pretty.
Why did he have to push him down the stairs?
Well, I think it's like he gets hit and the chair rolls back and he goes down. And that's an amazing stunt just on its own, watching someone go backwards down a flight of stairs in a wheelchair. But good pick. Good pick. Well done.
What's your last one?
What's that?
What's your last franchise pick? I genuinely can't remember. Oh my gosh.
All right. My final pick for what I think the greatest franchise of all time is Mission Impossible.
Oh my God. Yeah, cool. Right. I was so annoyed that I couldn't remember that.
No worries. I feel like it's the only franchise I can honestly think of that improves with every entry, both critically, financially, just on a personal level. I enjoy each one more than the one before, and to me, it's breaking the rules of what you expect a sequel to do, which is sort of give you a watered down version that you'll like. You get to spend time with characters you know and love, but it's never going to be like it was. And I feel like every single Mission Impossible movie defies all my expectations. And I'm always salivating for the next one to come out. So my pick is the Mission Impossible series.
I'm a virgin. I've never seen any of them.
Oh my Lord. Wow.
Never.
Is there a particular reason you've avoided this?
Oh, no. I mean, so many people badmouth Tom Cruise, don't they? And I actually have no problem with Tom Cruise as an actor. I think he was like superb in things like Eyes Wide Shut and Risky Business and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just never been an opportunity to me. It's never come up. They're not heavily put into rotation in this country that much, I don't think. Like, obviously, people go bonkers for James Bond and stuff when those movies come out. There's so much press, so much advertising. Which Mission Impossible comes out, I kind of feel like it gets the same kind of like mid-tier kind of, advertisement and promotion over here. I mean,
that's
people do
really surprising. I mean, the last one I think made $800 million, so I figured a good chunk of that must have come from Europe and overseas. Yeah,
people do love them. I know that there is people like. I feel like in this country, when you talk about things like that, more people, seem to gravitate towards James Bond. I don't know why. Who knows? James Bond is what it is.
I like Bond well enough. I just feel like the Bond movies are extremely inconsistent.
I tried to watch all of them in order during lockdown, and I just was like, stop hitting women.
That is a problem early on, isn't it?
It's all he does in the first few films. He's like, shut up. Every time a woman says something, he's like, no.
Yeah, Sean Connery didn't even know they were filming when that happened.
Those movies are funny as anything. But yeah, I mean, I remember when I was young, I think me and a boyfriend went to see it at the movies, the very first one, and we ended up not going for some reason. I think we were like something stupid, like our train got cancelled and we didn't make it in time. And that was like the closest I got to seeing one and stuff like that. But I've never watched them.
It's got an amazing life. The original came out in 1996. And they've consistently made them every 4 or 5 years since then. We're up to, what are we at, 6 now? And they just filmed 7 and 8 back to back. They're going to release them a year apart. With the exception of the second one, which would be like the Rocky IV of Mission Impossible movies, where it's literally the whole movie is just an explosion. Literally. They're really smart, intricate, character-driven films. Lots of surprises, lots of twists. Amazing stunt and set pieces. Some of the stuff that that man does to entertain us blows my mind. Whether or not he's hanging off the side of a plane or jumping between buildings and breaking his foot in the process. Like, I commend someone that is willing to beat the hell out of their body just to make an audience smile.
Yeah, I've certainly seen a lot of clips, and some of the cinematography on the stunts and the setups and stuff look absolutely beautiful and absolutely stunning, which is always a 10 out of 10 in my book. If you've taken the time to pay that kind of attention, you can't just throw an explosion at the screen and expect everyone to be like,
yeah. And I think a lot of that stems from, well, I mean, for the first few entries, especially, each one had a different director purposefully, so that each film would have a completely different look. The first film was made by Brian De Palma, and it's a really slow burn. I don't think there's a punch thrown in that movie. There's no fights. There's no gunplay. It's a very Bond-like spy thriller. And then they gave the second one to John Woo, who at the time was a Hong Kong movie director. He had just come off of Face Off. And, the second movie is literally just gunfights and explosions, which has its own charm too. And then they progressively moved on. It was J.J. Abrams' first feature film was the third one. The fourth one was directed by Brad Bird, who had only done The Incredibles before that. It was his first live action movie.
When J.J. Abrams did his, where it was just loads of sun flares.
There was a lot of lens flares. Yeah, but the 3 has maybe the best villain of the bunch. Philip Seymour Hoffman plays the villain in the third Mission Impossible movie. Wow. He is a fucking force of nature in that movie. Cannot recommend it enough.
Right.
Cannot recommend it enough. So if you're going to sit down and watch the Mission Impossible movies, skip 2 because it's unnecessary. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. It will be the best weekend you've spent. I swear you. It is. I almost said mindless fun, but that's not what it is, because it's incredibly thought-provoking, deep, and complicated. And every single one of those movies has a moment where I didn't see this coming at all.
Yeah.
And I've been obsessed with film for most of my life, so I kind of know how the sausage is made at this point. I kind of know what's coming. So when I'm surprised, it's kind of a miraculous thing. So cannot recommend enough.
I mean, I think, as I said, I can't remember how far I got into the Bond marathon. I was doing that, and it became so predictable and so dry, and there was no kind of development of the character, and I was very tired of it, and not just for the insane sexism, but that's of the time. You can't judge it, can you? That's just of the time. But it would be really interesting, I think, to see a spy film, a spy thriller, an action film, if you will, that has a really, really, good, strong character behind it. But I think everyone just assumes that Mission Impossible is kind of probably going to be like a more fancy, modern day Bond. But if it's not, then I definitely would be interested in watching it, because surprise me. Because as you said, when you become a film critic, or when you're interested in film, like you and I are, it takes a lot for a movie to actually surprise you.
Right. Well, the Mission Impossible things run on sort of a team aesthetic. I mean, you have Cruise playing the lead of Ethan Hunt, who's always right in the forefront, but it is always a team that's happening, and the actors that they put around him are always so strong. It's Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg joined the franchise in the third one, and Jeremy Renner and Rebecca Ferguson, who I fucking adore, and you just surround the story with these really great sort of character actors. Playing into their strengths. Alec Baldwin was in the last 2, and he was fantastic. Henry Cavill was in the last one as sort of the heavy. And, I'm being a little dismissive of the DC movies. I never took to Cavill as Superman like I wanted to. Mm-hmm. But his part in the Mission Impossible movie made me a Henry Cavill fan. Just instantly. So yeah, cannot recommend enough.
I definitely need to check them out. It sounds interesting. Yeah.
Please do. And report back, and we'll do this again. I just want to hear you talk about Mission Impossible. I'll sit here with tape.
Just come on, and I'm like, it's completely shit, and you just cut me off.
It'll be the shortest video I've ever done. This has been a lot of fun, though. I appreciate you coming on and doing this.
No, I love it. I love it. I've obviously been doing my podcast with the company that I work for, UK Film Review, and I think that however much lockdown and COVID is lame and been dreadful on so many levels, right. It's forced us to all sort of find more creative ways to interact with each other and get involved with projects and do stuff like that. So I'm really enjoying it, which is
it has been a fucking pleasure to have you on here, Rachel. I appreciate you coming and talking shit with me for as long as we have been.
It's been
You can find more of her at ukfilmreview.co.uk. I'll put that in the description as well as the Twitter. But
yeah.
Thank
And we
you
have
very
a
much.
Spotify with the podcast every Thursday for UK film review as well.
It is an outstanding podcast. I've listened to many of them, and that's the whole reason I even asked her to be here. So,
Have you listened to the ones I'm on?
What's that?
Have you listened to the podcasts that I'm on?
I've heard quite a few that you're on. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just when I'm on them, I feel like it's chaos and I say stuff that just like rubs people up the wrong way.
It's supposed to be chaos. All of this should be chaos, because if you're talking about film, it should be reckless and passionate. That's the way it should be. So
definitely.
But please come back and we can do this again. Yes.
Yes, I'm up for it. Definitely, especially the Friday the 13th deep dive.
Yes, we will tackle that. Absolutely. That's going to be a long one.
It's so long.
So
well, thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you very much. And we'll see you soon. All right.
All right. Okay. Awesome. Do I have to press anything?